Ron Howard, often praised as Hollywood's nicest director, has finally opened up about the rare moments that tested even his legendary patience. At 71, the Oscar-winning filmmaker pulled back the curtain on decades of behind-the-scenes tension and named 6 actors he found the hardest to work with. These aren't harmless disagreements. They're real Hollywood battle stories involving inflated egos, unexpected betrayals, and moments that nearly pushed him to his limit. So, who managed to shake the famously calm Ron Howard? Which superstar's behavior was so intense it almost drove him off the set? Stick with me because the actor in spot number 2 will absolutely shock you. Tom Sizemore. Ron Howard's film sets are usually compared to a well-conducted orchestra. The director's presence is quiet but steady. Every player knows their timing, and the whole team moves like clockwork. His goal isn't to rule through fear or chaos. It's to build a space where precision feels effortless and actors can lose themselves in their roles. But in 1996, when Tom Sizemore joined the cast of Ransom, that smooth rhythm suddenly changed. Sizemore was known for his raw intensity, the kind of on-screen magnetism that could make any scene feel dangerous and alive. Unfortunately, that same volatility didn't always blend smoothly with Howard's finely tuned process. Crew members would later describe a tension that hung in the air, like static. The scenes that were rehearsed in the morning weren't always the ones filmed later that day. Sizemore's energy could spike unpredictably. One moment, electric, the next flat. His entrances didn't always line up with the call sheet. His line delivery could blaze brilliantly in one take and fizzle out completely in the next. Ron Howard's philosophy has always been simple. Preparation gives you freedom. He builds a strong structure so that creativity has room to flourish. But Sizemore's approach pushed against that rhythm. Call sheets started to feel less like plans and more like guesses. Then came the infamous day whispered about by crew members. The entire production had to stop, not because of broken equipment or lighting failures, but because the emotional weather was wrong. Sizemore's unpredictable energy had thrown everything off balance. Howard didn't raise his voice. He didn't humiliate anyone. Instead, in his signature quiet style, he called for a full reset. He changed the shot list, reblocked scenes, and rebuilt the day around the energy he actually had, rather than the one the schedule had assumed. This was Ron Howard's version of crisis management. Contain, don't escalate. There were no outbursts, just a sudden, unmistakable shift in how the set operated. Everyone understood the subtext. When a director protects the rhythm of his set like that, it's a clear sign that trust and timing are at stake. The results on screen were undeniable. Sizemore's performance in Ransom was coiled, dangerous, and utterly compelling. Howard, as always, managed to capture messy brilliance inside clean cinematic frames. But it came at a cost. Assistant directors were forced to constantly rearrange schedules. Department heads had to tighten their communication. The usually relaxed family vibe of a Howard production turned guarded, as if everyone was bracing for aftershocks. Howard never turned it into a morality play. Instead, he quietly redesigned his strategy. More coverage, tighter planning, fewer variables. He essentially built a buffer around Sizemore's volatility so that the movie wouldn't suffer. When Tom Sizemore passed away in 2023, Howard didn't release a long emotional statement. Observers noted the quiet, not bitterness, just distance. Ransom had become a case study. And what happens when a director, built on steadiness, encounters an unpredictable force? The day stops. The crew waits and the leader chooses containment over confrontation. Volcanoes are fascinating to watch, but if you're running a clockwork set, you have to find a way to redirect the lava before it burns everything down. And that's exactly what Ron Howard did. When Ron Howard first stepped onto the set of The Andy Griffith Show in 1960, he was just 6 years old, a freckle-faced redhead from Oklahoma with a natural charm that seemed to light up the screen. 2 audiences. He was Opie Taylor, the sweet white-eyed son of Sheriff Andy, growing up in the idealized town of Mayberry. But behind the scenes, that set became something far more personal for young Ron. It was a classroom, a family, and a place where he absorbed the craft of storytelling without even realizing it. At the center of that world was Andy Griffith, a seasoned performer who quickly took the boy under his wing. He encouraged Ron's instincts, taught him timing, and made him feel valued despite his young age. And he made me feel like I belonged, Howard would later say. Their early bond mirrored the father-son relationship that millions of viewers adored on television. But as the series became a cultural phenomenon through the mid-1960s, cracks began to form beneath the wholesome surface. The pressure of success started weighing on Griffith, and insiders quietly noted changes in his demeanor. The man who had once radiated warmth began to grow moody, withdrawn, and occasionally volatile when things didn't align with his vision. For Ron, now entering his teen years, the shift was both confusing and painful. The easy laughter between takes became less frequent. Gentle guidance sometimes turned into curt corrections. As one cast member later described it, it was like watching a clear summer sky slowly fill with clouds. Ron was also changing. He wasn't just the obedient child actor anymore. He was growing more confident in his craft. he began asking thoughtful questions about character motivation and story arcs. What started as innocent curiosity sometimes came across to Griffith as quiet challenges to his authority. Their dynamics slowly evolved from father and son to something more complicated. Crew members remembered days when the set atmosphere shifted depending on Griffith's mood. There were occasional sharp exchanges followed by long, awkward silences. For young Ron, this was a pivotal education, his first glimpse at the gap between public image and private temperament. When the Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968, their relationship didn't implode. It simply cooled. There were no public feuds, no dramatic fallouts, just distance. As Griffith continued his television legacy, Howard began his gradual transition away from child acting and toward filmmaking. Looking back years later, Ron spoke about Griffith with measured respect. At Griffith's funeral in 2012, he said, "He shaped me in ways I'm still understanding." There was no bitterness in his voice, only clear boundaries. Those early years on set had taught Ron to profound lessons. The power of leadership through warmth and the danger of allowing ego and pressure to cloud a creative environment. When he eventually stepped into the director's chair himself, Howard deliberately built sets that mirrored the best of Mabber's spirit: collaborative, respectful, and emotionally steady. The quiet storm he'd witnessed in Griffith became a lifelong case study in emotional management. How charisma can sometimes mask insecurity, how even legends have blind spots, and how respect isn't commanded through fear. The lesson stuck. Behind Ron Howard's famously calm directing style is a childhood spent watching both the light and the shadow of leadership and learning exactly what kind of leader he wanted to be. When Ron Howard and Russell Crowe joined forces for A Beautiful Mind in 2001, Hollywood buzzed with excitement. Howard was known as the dependable craftsman, disciplined, heartfelt, a director who built harmonious sets. Crowe, meanwhile, was riding a tidal wave of acclaim after Gladiator and was considered the era's most intense leading man. On paper, it looked like the perfect pairing, and in many ways, it was. The film went on to win Best Picture and Best Director Oscars. But behind the elegant surface of that masterpiece lay a daily tug-of-war between two towering creative forces with wildly different philosophies. For Howard, filmmaking is like a carefully choreographed dance. Every camera angle, line reading, and movement is mapped to allow discovery within structure. For Crowe, the process was something else entirely chaotic. Instinctual, a relentless hunt for emotional truth in every moment. Playing the brilliant but tormented mathematician John Nash, Crowe arrived each day armed with bold ideas, some genius, some baffling. He rewrote lines, challenged camera setups, debated pacing, and questioned dialogue. Crew members described each scene as a philosophical duel between the actor and the director. Howard, known for his patience, walked a tightrope. He wanted to respect Crowe's commitment but also had to keep the production moving. His sets thrive on quiet concentration. Crowe's energy filled the room like a storm front. One assistant director put it bluntly: Russell didn't just want to play Nash, he wanted to wrestle him into existence. There were days when Howard had to completely rearrange shooting schedules midstream to accommodate Crowe's sudden bursts of inspiration. It wasn't confrontation. It was adaptive directing at its highest level. Howard essentially became a pilot flying through turbulence, holding the control steady while his co-pilot tried daring maneuvers. The results were extraordinary. Crowe delivered one of his most haunting and vulnerable performances. Howard framed that intensity with clarity, shaping the chaos without smothering it. Together, they captured lightning in a bottle, but make no mistake, it took a toll. The constant push and pull left Howard drained by the end of production. Years later, he described the experience with characteristic grace. Some actors, you steer. Russell, you hold on tight and hope for the best.